Welcome back. Now we're ready to continue finishing this first room of the level, and we still need to create this piece here. Now it looks like one big piece, and I think that if we create one big piece for this half and for this half, then that'll save us some work and some copying. So I'm going to just take all the geometry here, which is this piece, including this one here, and on this side we have a couple of pieces as well. So we need to go ahead and create all of these. So let's go ahead and copy these over. So we're going to bring it out here, and we need to decide which assets to use for this. Now I'm going to get these pieces out of our way, so I'm going to select them all and bring them over. That way we can see these clearly. So we need to decide on what blocks we're going to use for this. Now we have a lot of these square blocks, so these could work. Now we haven't used these two blocks here that have grooves in them, so these are actually kind of cool. So let's see what happens if we just copy one of these over and see how that looks. So I'm going to bring this over here and position it right up against it. Now it is a little too tall, but that's okay because this can sort of go into the ground a little bit. But it does look like it's just about the span of 4 squares. And in this direction, it's almost 2 squares, but we'll have to scale it down just a bit. So let's scale it down to just about the right size here. And I'm going to turn snapping off and bring it up just a bit so it's poking out of the ground, just barely. Okay, so now I can copy this over. And once I copied it, it looks like it's not quite wide enough, so I'm going to actually delete that and scale this just a little more without snapping on, just a little bit. Okay, so now that I can copy it over, that looks pretty good. Let's move the grid out of the way. And I think that looks pretty decent. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy these bricks. So I'm going to copy these two and move them down. So we have these cool groove looking things, and because there are grooves, we'll see holes here if we don't copy them down at least another time, like that. I kind of like these grooves because it's almost like blood holes. If this is sort of like a battle arena, then these are meant to drain the blood, which is kind of twisted but also pretty sweet. So I'm going to just go ahead and copy these now. So I have 4 that I can go ahead and just make some copies and create this repeating pattern here. So I'm going to copy these over here, all the while checking to make sure that these cracks look good. And I think there's a little bit of overlap because I scaled it just barely too big, but I think that's good because that eliminates the need to place something behind it to avoid the light passing through. So I think that that's going to work out okay. So I'm really just going to fill this out, and it looks like I have a crack here. So I'm going to need to select all these on this side and simply move them over just a notch, like that. So now I can go ahead and select this entire row and just copy it over. So I'm going to copy it and drag it up like that. And one more time, like that. And again, because of the holes, we're going to need to take this row and copy it down. In fact, I think I'm going to need the entire row here copied down on both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and just select this row first. I don't need these middle 2 because there's already copies down there. And I'll just copy these down like that. And I'll do the same thing here on the other side. So I'll get this whole row and copy it down. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now I can go ahead and just group this. So I'm going to go ahead and select everything here. Now I've got this whole side selected. I'm just going to group it. And then I'm going to get this whole other side, including the bottom part here, and right-click and regroup. And then finally, I can take all the bricks on the inside. So I had my previously selected bricks still selected, and then I just simply held Shift and left-clicked on more items to add them to the selection. So I have a group selected plus more items, and once you select more items, you can right-click on the entire selection and regroup, and then you have one big group. Okay, so if I copy this over, then I have one big group, and I can bring this all the way into my level here, and it looks like I almost dragged it exactly into place, just a couple of tick marks away. Okay, now let's take a look at both sides. That's looking pretty good. Of course, I forgot I have a staircase here, so I might have a couple too many copies. That's not a big deal. You know, if I wanted to be meticulous, I could go in and delete all the unneeded meshes, but that's okay. I'm just going to leave it as is for now, and I'm going to go ahead and turn off visibility for the super grid and see how this looks. And I think that's looking pretty sweet. So another thing is, if you look straight down, you will see the white and you'll see light coming up out of those holes. So that's not a good thing. So what you can do is you can place meshes on the bottom and offset them. That's one way to do it. You could also just simply place a geometry down here. I believe if we go into the Paragon props and go to ground, there's in the meshes, there's just a plane 5 by 5, and what we can do is bring this plane in here, and we can scale the plane up to this area here. So I'm going to hit R and scale it up, and also scale it in this direction. And then what we can do is take this plane and bring it down beneath the floor, and that way if we look down, we won't see light, we'll just see this plane instead. And for the plane, we could give it a material. We could even just create a black material right here. So let's right-click and create a material and call this material black. And here in the material, we can just simply create a three-dimensional vector by holding 3 and left-clicking, dragging it into base color, and just leaving it black. So I'm going to save that and close it. And then this mesh we just dragged in here, called SM Plane, we're going to set its material here to black. And I'm going to bring it down so we can't see it. It's going to be below the floor. And now if we look down in there, as soon as this material shader is compiled, we'll just see black down there. Okay, so I'm going to click Save All, Save Selected. That's going to conclude this video. We now have this next level completed, and it's this ground with some sort of blood groove holes in it, which is pretty cool. So we're going to go ahead and continue in the next video with these arches. I'll see you then.